Hello, this is Chuck Ridgway, Automation Technology Manager at Horner. Thanks for joining us for another Tuesday live stream. But not just another Tuesday live stream, a continuation of the Summer of Cscape. All summer long, we're bringing you great Cscape 10 related content, and today is no different. Here's today's topic. Today, it's a Canvas graphics overview in Cscape 10. Also all summer long, I've been telling you about some of my favorite summer activities, and today it's riding around in my convertible with the top down. Now I have a 2006 Pontiac Solstice. That's a pretty old car, but it's in pretty good shape, although it's not particularly fast. Right now it's not particularly clean, but it is all packed up and ready to go for my next adventure, which is a bike trip. You can see in the bike rack back there, I've got my bicycle all ready to go, and I will be headed on a bicycle from Pittsburgh to DC. Now, as far as getting my bicycle to the starting point, it'll be up to my trusty convertible and Amtrak, because I've got a sleeper train tonight from South Bend to Pittsburgh, where I start my bicycle part of the adventure. But anyway, enough about me and my convertible, my bicycle, and my train trips. Let's get down to today's topic. Okay, here's how we're breaking it down. We're going to take a look at advanced graphics versus standard graphics. So how do they compare? How are they different? Why is advanced graphics only available in Canvas? Why not the rest of the product line? And then what type of capabilities does advanced graphics include? And then today, we're going to review some of the more common Canvas graphics objects. So we're going to save some of the more complicated ones for future sessions and dedicate sessions to those, how they work, where you might use them. But the ones we're going to review today are kind of the common building blocks in just about any application. So you can see the list on the screen there. We're going to review those objects in Canvas today. All right, here we go. Okay, so let's start comparing advanced graphics that you'll find in Canvas with the standard graphics that you'll find in all of the rest of our all-in-one controllers. Okay, so our standard graphics, which again is used in every OCS all-in-one controller previous to Canvas, it's really designed for speed and efficiency. So what you'll find when you use a Horner OCS all-in-one controller, when you change screens, when your graphics objects update on the screen, you will find really good performance, really snappy response times. I mean, if you compared, for instance, let's say an XL Prime project, running in the field with, let's say, a Allen Bradley panel view, which is a good product, you'll find from a performance standpoint, almost certainly you're going to be getting more snappy performance from an XL Prime than from the panel view. That's just because the graphics engine that's been embedded in the traditional Horner products, which we call our standard graphics, results in some really nice performance. So it's been designed for speed and efficiency. And you can do just about anything you want to do graphically, but sometimes it takes quite a bit of extra work. You have to import quite a few images. You might have to use hidden objects more than maybe you'd like to. There's some advanced techniques that you need to use if you want to get some really advanced looking graphics on the screen. Now, if basic graphics is really all you're looking for and it's really not that important to have an advanced look, then hey, the standard graphics engine works fantastic. Now, there are also some limitations in our standard graphics engine, and I'll just list a couple of them here on the screen. When you're graphing variable data, it needs to be in integer form. So all the trends and those sorts of graphs, they require integer data to graph. So if you've got a floating point value in a variable that you'd like to graph or trend, you'll need to have an integer version of that variable that the trend can use to display the data on the screen. So there's a limitation as an example. When you're importing images, you have quite a bit of flexibility, but you are limited to JPEGs, bitmaps, and scalable vector graphics. So you don't have all of the modern types available, the GIFs, the PNGs, those sorts of things. And there's no gesture support. So, no swiping, no scrolling, none of those sorts of things are available in the standard graphics. Lots of capability, really good performance, but pretty basic stuff. Now let's take a look at our advanced graphics, okay? What is that? Well, this is a more modern graphics engine which provides more advanced tools for the system designer. So you don't have to use as many tricks, I guess. Less image importing to do simple tasks, less hidden objects, those sorts of things. Now, to accomplish this, we built this advanced graphics engine using a leading third-party industrial graphics package. It's used in a lot of applications like fancy automotive dashboards for cars. You know, just about every automobile these days has a digital dashboard, speedometer, all those sorts of things. They typically use a industrial design package to accomplish some of that. And a leading industrial design package was used for the Horner advanced graphics capabilities. Now, we had to do a ton of customization so it can be used in a package like Cscape, so you have complete flexibility over the design. That's typically not the way those packages work when they're used for their, industrial design, traditional type dashboard type applications. And we had to do a ton of optimization to make sure we could get the same snappy runtime performance that our customers expect and that we expect, frankly, in the performance of our controllers, again, at runtime. Okay, so that's the advanced graphics engine. Now, why not run this advanced graphics engine in every OCS? Why not the micro OCS or the XL Prime even, which is a pretty new product? Well, effectively, the standard graphics that have been Horner design for years are very efficient, and they don't require a ton of memory. They don't require a really high-end microprocessor. And so they'll pretty much run on any of our products no matter what their cost range is. Whereas the third-party package, which we designed our advanced graphics on, it's much more power hungry. It wants much more memory to run efficiently, and it needs a faster microprocessor. And it really, frankly, from our standpoint, needs that dual core microprocessor that we designed Canvas around, where you have a dedicated core to run graphics, so that even, if you do some really advanced stuff using this advanced graphics engine, it's not going to impact your logic performance. Okay, so what are some of the things that this Canvas Advanced Graphics package includes? Why is it different than our standard graphics? Well, certainly it includes more refined and more modern graphics objects. So again, if you want a special look, you don't necessarily have to bring in as many custom images to get a more advanced look. It has a better ability to handle backgrounds of screens, backgrounds of objects. You can do those using our standard graphics, but you end up with an image on the background that you have to be careful not to click because it's always there. Whereas the backgrounds in Canvas with our advanced graphics, those backgrounds, are out of the way, and you can add a custom background to just about any Canvas object. Also, the advanced graphics engine supports gestures, so the swiping, the pinches, or the swiping and scrolling. And in the future, as we add support for capacitive touchscreens, you'll be able to do pinching and zooming as well. Advanced shading and texture, so much nicer looking objects, nicer textures, more realistic looks to those objects are possible because of that shading and texturing capability. You can graph all variable types, okay? It doesn't have to just be integer. If you have a floating point value that you want to trend, you can do that no problem. Also, you have some really complex objects available with extensive runtime adjustability. So as an example, if you have a trend with a dozen pens on it, and you want to hone in at runtime and just a couple of the pens at any given moment, you have the ability to dynamically hide and show pens at runtime. So that's an example of some of the runtime adjustability that you have with some of these advanced objects. Also, you can manipulate graphic objects by tying some of their attributes to variables. And you can do that for the position of an object on the screen, either its X position or its Y position or both. What size that object is can be changed dynamically by adjusting a variable. Its rotation angle, that can also be adjusted at runtime by tying it to a variable. So those are all things included in the advanced graphics engine that you won't necessarily find with our standard graphics. Next, for the rest of the time today, we are going to be reviewing some of the standard, simpler objects that are available in Canvas. Now, for the complex objects, we're going to save those for future shows when we dedicate shows to those specific advanced features. You know, we'll have an individual show on trends and graphs, for instance. But today we're going to focus on the simpler objects, the data fields, the push buttons and indicators, the jump objects, which you use to switch screens, sliders for adjusting analog values, for instance, rotary objects, which are new, progress bars, traditionally called bar graphs, if you will. They're also supported, you know, as progress bars today. And then we're going to show you, of course, the custom background capability I've mentioned a couple times today already. All right, let's start with numeric data fields. Now, a numeric data field is one of the basic building blocks of any, you know, industrial operator interface application. It's the way you display variable data on the screen to show it to the operator. You also use these objects, of course, so that operators can change set points and that sort of thing for variables where you want the operator to have that capability. So because they're a relatively simple object, there's not a huge number of improvements that have made, but there are some significant ones. So you've got more control over the shape of the object. Okay, they're not strictly just rectangles or rounded rectangles. You also have, of course, the additional background options because every object can have a custom background, not just a color or a gradient, but also you can add custom images and custom patterns. And a big thing for those who are looking for this sort of modern capability is for an integer type object or for a date or time type adjustment, you can select a spinner as the method in which the operator edits the data. Sometimes spinners are also called tumblers. We've used them on cell phones and operators have used them on cell phones for years. So it's the type of editing that you may want to bring into your machine because, again, because of the commonality with cell phone type editing on certain data fields on cell phones, it may be something that's intuitive to an operator for a specific data field that you want them to adjust. So those are some of the enhancements to the numeric data fields. Another basic building block, of course, is an indicator object, which is used to show on-off status for a Boolean type variable or a Boolean type state in the machine. Okay, so what are the enhancements there? Again, this is a relatively simple object, so the number of enhancements are not huge. But effectively, you've got additional choices in terms of what the graphics look like for the indicator. Okay, and then maybe a bigger deal would be the ability to support your own user-defined indicator. So you can bring in any image that you want represented by on and any image that you want to be represented by off. And you have a lot of control over how you bring that image in, how it's scaled, all those sorts of things. So you can basically create your own custom indicator based on, you know, what you want that to look like. Maybe it's a motor on off and you want a picture of a motor that's green when it's on and a picture of that motor that's red when it's off. I don't know, whatever you want to do, you have that capability. Another thing that you have the ability to do is you have more control over your legend plate. Again, just like just about all of the rest of the Canvas advanced graphics objects, you have the ability to have a custom background as part of your legend plate if that's something you're looking to do. Similarly, as indicators are a basic building block for displaying the status of Boolean variables, switches and selectors are kind of the basic building blocks to give the operator the ability to turn Boolean variables on and off. So we've really expanded the switch object now to include more than just simple push buttons. It now includes toggle switches, multi-position switches, slide switches, all of those things that you would expect for the ability to, you know, manipulate a Boolean variable, but now you have many more visual graphic options in order to display that. So again, if you want more of a cell phone style, you know, slide switch on or off type scenario for a series of machine settings, for instance, you can do that easily. You've got the ability to bring in those specific slide switches that look just like the ones that operators are used to when they're operating their cell phones, for instance. And just like the user-defined indicator capability, you also have user-defined switch capability. So you can import a custom graphics for switching the Boolean variable on and a custom graphic for switching the Boolean variable off, or at least what they look like when they're on and they're off. So again, switches are now more than just switches, they're also switches and selectors. Okay, the jump object. That's the traditional way that an operator will choose to switch screens, by using a jump object. And the jump object has received enhancements as well. So new jump icons. So if you want to have a specific icon on the button that indicates, okay, I'm switching to a maintenance screen, or I'm switching to a help screen, or I'm making a network adjustment, you have more choices than you've had in the past of specific icons that will, indicate that particular function. More shapes and styles of the buttons, less limitations than before. And then another big thing for those who want to take advantage of gestures, if you want your operator to switch between a series of screens, for instance, just by swiping left and swiping right, you can incorporate that using the jump object. So that's a significant enhancement for those who want to support screen changes via swiping. Okay, another object that's gotten a fair amount of work in the Canvas Advanced Graphics set, but yet is still a pretty simple object, is the slider object. So the slider object is now not just linear. You have choices of multiple styles of linear sliders like we've had before, but with some new graphical options. But now you also have the ability to incorporate a rotary slider or a knob into your project. And the Canvas Advanced Graphics also supports the gesture that's required for, turning a knob clockwise or turning a knob counterclockwise. So again, not just linear sliders are available. Now you've got also rotary sliders, or the equivalent of a rotary slider, which is a knob. Now also a new type of linear slider that's available is called a range slider, where you actually have two knobs where you can control the range of a variable. You've got a lower level and an upper level, and by manipulating those two separate knobs, you can specify a range, or the operator can specify a range. So quite a few changes with the slider and the rotary object. Okay, bar graphs have gotten a fair amount of enhancements because you can now kind of treat them like progress bars if you want, by the fact that you now have more choices than ever on the types of fills that are included with your bar graph. So it's not just a simple color anymore. You can bring in custom images or custom graphics to give a specific look that you're looking for. And just like with the sliders, we've brought rotary bar graphs or rotary progress bars into the Cscape 10 Canvas Advanced Graphics set. So more capabilities with your bar graphs, primarily through the support of rotary bar graphs. And then, as we mentioned last week, and we'll mention it again this week, just about every Canvas graphics object has the ability to have a custom background. So if you're looking for a brushed aluminum pattern, or some sort of crosshatch steel plate type pattern, or just more of a unique look, you've got a series of, I don't know, what is that up there? Maybe 20 or 30 different custom background patterns that you can choose from on just about every Canvas object. Or if you just want to bring in your own graphic, you can do that as well, with the ability to control that graphic, how it looks on the screen, whether it's scaled or not scaled. You can make sure the aspect ratio is maintained so it doesn't get all, stretched improperly, so it looks all wonky. You want to prevent that, so you can easily do that. So more controls over a particular, how a custom image looks. You can even tile an image. If you have a really small image that you would like to pattern as a background, you can do that as well. So much more control over custom backgrounds. Okay, now let's spend a few minutes kind of going through some of these common objects and taking a look at some of these new enhancements. All right, we're here in Cscape 10. I've got a new file I've created here. I also have just created, under the main screen group, I created a new screen called Motor Control, okay, which is screen number 1. As soon as you create a new screen, it will basically prompt you to name it, and then it will, in parentheses, it will put the screen number behind that so you can keep track of screen numbers. All right, let's utilize that custom background capability. We're going to be creating a motor control screen here, and I want to have kind of an interesting background, industrial looking background. That's what I'm going for here on this particular screen. So what I'm going to do is right click here somewhere in the screen area and go with Set Background. And I have the ability to select a pattern, which is what I want to do here. All right. So for now, let's just go ahead and leave it on scale to fit and take a look at the available patterns. All right, and those will pop up here in a second. There we go. And let's say what I'm looking for today is kind of a brushed aluminum type look. Yeah, that'll work just fine. Kind of looks industrial, brushed aluminum type look. Do I want to tint it to a different color? Well, let's take a look at that. I'll hit the tint button here. I think I'm just going to leave it pretty much at the default tint. I'll show you what it would look like otherwise. Let's give it kind of a dark blue tint. Okay, you can see that's a look there. I think I prefer really just kind of the natural aluminum color. So let's give it no tint and go back to the default here. Okay, and right now it's on scale to fit. Let's hit maintain aspect ratio so that it doesn't stretch it out of proportion in case that makes a difference. Let's hit OK. All right, and as we can see here, all right, I've got some white space on the edge, which means I do need to, not just leave it at its default aspect ratio. So let's go back into the set background and do maintain aspect ratio with clipping. So what we'll do then is it will make sure it is large enough to fill the screen, and then just clip off the edge as needed. Okay, so I think that's going to be a much better result for what I'm looking for. Now, the other thing I'm going to do, and it'll kind of show that background a little bit better, and also because I may decide I don't want all these grid lines to be displayed here, I'm going to right click here and go to grid setting, and I'm not going to show the grid here. I'll still snap to my secondary grid, but I don't really want to show the grid at all, and I don't necessarily want to snap to the primary grid for now. Okay, so you can see that's what our background's going to look like, and we'll still have the ability to snap to our secondary grid as we build additional objects. Let's start with a hand auto selector switch on our motor control page here. All right, so let's go to touch objects and our switch object. I'm going to go ahead and just fill in something that's about the right size here. And instead of selecting a standard push button, I'm going to go to a multi-position switch. I'm going to select this guy here. Okay, and I'm going to tie that to a variable I previously created called auto mode. So when it's on, it'll be auto. When it's off, it'll be manual. Okay, and I want that to be a toggle action to go back and forth between manual and auto. 2 positions is perfect. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so I'll say okay there, and there's the button I have. Now you'll notice I don't have a legend plate, so I need to add that. So I'm going to go to fixed objects and text label and drag a text object. I want it to be a little bigger than that. Let's say 30. Okay, and let's make the left side here is going to be, let's say, hand or manual. All right, and let's put that about where we want it here. We can take a look and see if it's lined up by using the simulator button here. Okay, that's lined up pretty good. All right, now let's copy that. Copy, and then I'll just use my keyboard for Control V for pasting. All right, and about there looks about right. And let's change this to auto. Okay, so now, happy with the way that looks. Again, we'll utilize our handy dandy simulator here, and there we go. Okay, so we've got an auto mode selector switch. All right, now let's add a start button and a stop button. Something simple. Okay, so touch objects, I believe, is where we'll find the same button object we selected before. We're just not going to make it an indicator. We're going to make it into a push button instead. Okay, so let's select from one of these push buttons. Well, before we do that, let's pick our variable. It doesn't matter if we do that before or after. We'll make that the start push button. Okay, let's select our button type. Let's go ahead and go with this guy right here. All right, but I think we want our colors to be different. All right, so let's go ahead and get those selected. Oh, I guess it's not editable. So I don't want that color for sure. Let's pick a different one. All right, let's go with this guy for start because I want a green button for start. All right, so we've got momentary, start push button. That all looks good. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. And let's get some text in front of it. Okay, so let's center that up there. We need to make it a little wider to support a longer word, which is start. Okay. All right, got that there. All right, pretty happy with that. Let's go ahead and I'm going to show you, you can select this switch object as default. Maybe we've got a bunch of start buttons we want to have. We want them all to start out as the same. Okay, so now this is our standard switch object. So if we create another switch object, it's naturally going to be that same one. So, you know, that's another option we have when we have multiple buttons that are going to be the same. Of course, we can do copy and paste as well. Now in this case, okay, we actually want the red button here. All right, and we need to tie that to the stop push button. All right, we've done that. And then let's just go ahead and copy that and paste it and go here, oops, up a little bit and make that stop. All right, so we've got our start and stop push buttons. Everything lines up pretty good there. Now we need some sort of indicator. Is the motor running or not? Let's do a custom indicator for this. We could just do a standard pilot light for sure, but let's do a custom interface for this. So I'm going to start by selecting an indicator. Okay. Sizing it about where I want it. All right. Okay, now I'm going to want to get rid of, so everything matches, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this legend plate on the back, and obviously I'm going to change this to a user-defined graphic or user-defined indicator here. First, let's tie it to our variable, which is going to be motor run pilot light. And then under legend plate properties, I'm just going to get rid of the legend plate. All right. And then I'm going to select under indicator, I don't want that. I want user defined. There we go. So under user defined, I'm going to select my on image and my off image. Okay, and I want these to maintain their aspect ratio for sure. Don't necessarily want them, I do want them scaled, but I want to make sure they don't look all wonky. All right, and I'm going to actually bring in symbols from the symbol library. Now you could do it with any image that you'd like, but in my case, I've got the symbol library, I might as well take advantage of it. So I'm going to select my on image of a motor running, okay, which is just going to be a motor in green. That one looks just fine. We'll stick with that one. All right, so that's my on image. And then for my off image, I'm just going to change the color of that graphic here in the symbol library to, let's see, shaded, and then let's make it red. Yep, that's what I want right there. Double click there, and that's the image I want. Okay, so let's see how it looks. If I've got everything configured the way I want. And sure, that looks good. Now, I do want to be able to, I think to make it even more clear for the operator, I want to have some text under here that goes from running to stopped or stopped to running. So let me make this a little bit smaller. So I have a little bit more room there. You can see it kept the aspect ratio nice. Okay, I'll put that where I want it. And then let's put a text table here. Okay, so it's not going to be fixed text. It's going to be a text table. So let's go to live text data and select text table. I'm just going to put it over here. I'll move it here in a bit because you see by default, just like with Cscape 9, it comes up with a legend plate and a border. I don't want any of that stuff. This also variable, well, before I select the variable, let's select a size of 1 bit, okay, because this is also going to be tied to the motor run pilot light. All right, and running stopped, I think 8 characters or less will probably work for that. And let's go to text table. I've already got one created that's stopped and running. I'll just take advantage of that one. Okay. And then let's make the size match what we've been using elsewhere, which is the 30 size. It's not editable. Let's see how, oh, we don't want a, under standard attributes, okay, we don't want a border. All right, and under legend, we don't want a legend either, okay? And actually, under the display style, we don't want a color. We want it to be transparent. So under display style, I'm going to go under background color / image, select color, but I'm going to select none so it's nice and transparent. Okay, and then I think that'll be what we're looking for. Okay, that looks pretty good. Then I can move that over here where I want. I'm going to put it underneath instead of above. And that looks like that'll work just fine. Okay, so I have my own custom indicator that'll turn between red and green. Let's take a look at that here. Red, green, okay, and then this will change from stop to running as it goes, you know, with the appropriate color. Okay, so, you know, this is the way I've decided to draw this. Obviously, you could draw it 100 different ways, or 1,000,000 different ways, actually. So finally, let's go ahead and work on a numeric data field for motor speed. All right, so let's go back here to the live text data group and select numeric. All right, we'll put it approximately the size we want, and let's go in and change the look and tie it to the appropriate variable and all those sorts of things. Okay, so we want a floating point variable here, and the floating point variable we're after is motor speed. All right, let's display it with 3 decimals to the left and 1 to the right. All right, so that's good old 123.1. I can find it here on the list. There we go. And let's put the engineering units as hertz. Oops, got my caps lock on there. All right, let's bump up the size to match kind of what we've been using on this page. We're gonna, let's say we'll allow them to enter anything from 0 to 100 on the frequency. And I know 60 is more common, but let's just allow them to go up to 100. Oops, 100, there we go. Okay, now we could leave it like this and, you know, just with the standard look. Oh, we've got a legend in there. We probably need to make this wider. Okay, we've got a legend in there. We want to change to motor speed, and let's change to one of the kind of the newer look backgrounds here just to mix it up a little bit and show off that new feature. Okay, so I'm going to double click in here. Under my legend, I'm going to put motor speed. All right, let's keep the text fairly small to keep the object reasonably sized. And then under display style, let's select a round end object here with a 3D bezel, and then let's use one of those pattern backgrounds, and let's select a darker steel object here, and let's do the maintain aspect ratio with clipping just to make sure everything fits the way it should without being stretched out of proportion. Okay, I'm happy with that. That's pretty good. All right, let's raise it back up here a little bit. All right, so now we've got a speed indicator, which, because we've made it editable, can be adjusted by the operator. Now let's also have a speed control in the form of a rotary knob while we're at it. All right, let's do that. All right, actually what I'm going to do here, since I'm making that a little bigger, is I'm going to, under the legend, let's make that a little bit bigger here. That should still fit okay. There we go. And then next to that, let's put a knob, okay, which will be kind of a knob to control motor speed. All right, so let's do that by going to live graphic data. Nope, touch objects is what we want. And we want a slider. Okay, now we're going to end up not with a linear slider, but with a rotary slider. So when I put that in there, at first it doesn't really look quite right. Once I get done configuring it, it should be looking better. Okay, so this is going to be motor speed. Again, floating point, so let's set it up for floating point. 0 to 100 with 1 decimal. Let's not show the scale limits for now. Actually, yeah, let's do it. Let's show the scale limits. Let's go with a rotary object. We have a choice of different colors of knobs. Let's stick with metal silver and see what that looks like. All right, and then under legend, let's get rid of the legend. And let's just take a, well, we got to assign a variable to it first. So 32-bit floating point value, and again, motor speed. All right, now let's see what that looks like kind of by default and see what adjustments we may need to make to it. Okay, so the background, we probably want to tweak the background a bit. All right, probably want to, let's go with no background again. All right, so background, none. All right, and I don't know that we need a legend plate. All right. Okay, so there we go. Let's try a different color knob though. That one kind of blends into the background a little bit. Let's see, why not? Let's go with a golden knob. There we go. Oh, that kind of doesn't really match what the look we're going for here. Let's try a gray one, see if that contrasts a little bit better. Yeah, I think that one contrasts a little bit better. Okay, so let's go ahead as the final step here. Let's put kind of minimum and maximum on here so that as we adjust it, actually, let's not even worry about that. That may actually kind of make it a little bit more cluttered than we would like. Okay, so for better or for worse, based on my lack of artistic talent, but we've done a few things and demonstrated a few new things here. So we've got a switch object, which is actually acting as an indicator, okay, a 2-position indicator. We've got some new options for push buttons, and we've chosen one of the new options. We've done a custom indicator, so these were, of course, push buttons. We've got a custom indicator here, not just a pilot light, but we've taken advantage of the symbol library in this case, but you could bring your own graphics in. We've used the traditional text tables, which really hasn't changed a whole lot. And then we've got numeric data object, which has some new options here in terms of shapes and backgrounds. And then we're using a rotary knob, and at runtime, we'll be able to manipulate this with our, gestures so that we can turn the knob clockwise and turn the knob counterclockwise. And so, we've showed off a few of our new tools here. Okay, that wraps up our topic for today, but next week, the summer of Cscape 10 rolls along as we continue to focus on the new features in Canvas or supported by Canvas. So next week and the week after, and we'll probably just keep it going all summer long. Okay, so don't forget to sign up and get your spot reserved for one of our training classes. We've got basic training in October and advanced training in November. So I know that seems like a long time away, but I think we're only 8 weeks away from football season. So before you know it, these classes will be upon you. So let's go ahead and get signed up for those so we don't miss our opportunity. Okay, there's lots of ways to interact with Horner online. We'd love to see you on our website where there's lots of great information that you can download and peruse. Check out our Horner YouTube channel where you'll find this video and all of our other great videos. And of course, if you're active in LinkedIn, we are as well. So we hope to see you there. Okay, next week, we're going to focus on those enhanced display attributes in Cscape 10 that are available for Canvas. So the ability to change the position of an object on the screen, how tall it is, how wide it is, its opacity, not just whether it's visible or not, its angle of rotation, all those things can be controlled using enhanced display attributes, and next week we're going to review those, so don't miss it. Okay, so until next week, I'll be out there riding my bike, but you get out there and do some good.